So, all my friends now know I fly for fun, and whilst most of them give me a hearty slap on the back and a big well done, a couple have expressed concern and have told me that flying is dangerous. So, is flying dangerous? And if it is, why am I doing it? Now, am I a daredevil with no care for my own personal safety or the people around me? Am I one of life's big risk takers, putting my life on the line on a daily basis? No, of course not. I learned to fly because it's something I've always wanted to do, and I was finally in a position to do it. Now, I didn't go into this blind though. I did my homework. I knew well before I handed over any money that general aviation has its risks. What's important is to research into these risks and know how to mitigate them. Right, so let's talk statistics and how flying compares to other modes of transport. Now, the interweb is a treasure trove of information, but actually finding statistics for general aviation which are comparable with cars and motorcycles, lorries, etc. is quite tricky. Aviation reports are based on hours flown as opposed to miles travelled. So as such, I've had to make some guesstimates to compare them all, but I'm reasonably confident I'm in the right ballpark. Okay, so let's look at the most dangerous forms of transport down to the safest. At the top, the most dangerous form of transport is the motorcycle, with 116.9 deaths per billion passenger miles travelled. Now, I know this already. I've ridden bikes for over 30 years. I ride professionally, and in a past life I used to race them. I'm only too aware of the risks involved. I've lost friends to motorcycle accidents. It's pretty frightening out there. In second place is general aviation. Oh! Yes, it's a close second at 114.5 deaths per billion passenger miles. Now, this did surprise me. I wasn't expecting it to be that high, and certainly not that close to motorcycles. Given the rules and regulations surrounding flying, not to mention the extensive training involved, I thought it would be a lot better than that. We'll do more of a deep dive into the reasons why in just a moment. Now, there's a huge gap between second and third place, which goes to pedal cycles at 30.9 deaths per billion miles. Then pedestrians at 25.6, cars at 1.9, lorries at 1.2, vans at 0.6, buses and coaches at 0.3, and then the winner by a massive margin is commercial aviation at a staggering 0.07. Incredible. So if you came here wondering how safe commercial aviation is, you can switch off now. You have nothing to worry about. Okay, so you're probably questioning my earlier statement when I said I'm not a risk taker or daredevil, because here I am using the two most dangerous forms of transportation. But I genuinely don't believe I'm a big risk taker. I have zero desire to get myself killed. Now, I'm the sort of person who would never jump over a low wall if I didn't know what was on the other side. I take very calculated risks and do whatever I can to keep myself safe. So I did a good amount of research on general aviation accidents to see what it was that was killing pilots, in the hope I can avoid putting myself in the same situation. So here's what I found. So the number one cause is loss of control in flight, of which over 90% were attributed to human factors, the most common being the stall and spin at low altitude. Now, this mostly happens on the base to final turn, where the pilot overshoots and inadvertently puts the aircraft in a state of cross control in an effort to line up with the runway, resulting in a low wing stall and the aircraft spins into the ground. Pretty frightening. And Flight Chops did an amazing video on this, and I'll put a link below. You really should check it out. I'm putting everything I learned in that video to practice. If in doubt, go around. So the other common cause of loss of control is VFR pilots like myself flying into IMC, Instrument Meteorological Conditions. It said you have 178 seconds to live if you're a non-IFR pilot and fly into clouds. This is all down to losing spatial awareness and not responding to what the instruments are telling you when your brain is screaming contradictory information. Now this is why I'd rather be on the ground wishing I was in the sky than in the sky wishing I was on the ground. This is a great motto to live by in the aviation world. If flying conditions are marginal, I'm staying on the ground. No ifs, no buts. Well, at least until I get my instrument rating, which is the next thing on the training to-do list. Okay, in second place is controlled flight into terrain. Yep, that is a pilot flying a perfectly good airplane in complete control straight into the ground. Now, a common example of this is a VFR pilot desperately trying to keep below the cloud line, getting lower and lower until eventually the ground rises up and the pilot has nowhere to go. This is known as scud running, but it happens to IFR pilots too when losing situational awareness of the terrain beneath them. This is why thorough briefings are required pre-flight on things such as weather, terrain, aircraft performance, alternative airports, and an ability not to suffer from get there-itis, that overwhelming urge of a pilot to press on to complete their mission despite the worsening conditions. So those top two causes equate to around 88% of general aviation accidents. 88%. In third place is the relatively rare occurrence of an engine failure, with the worst case scenario being an engine failure on takeoff. So the overwhelming urge here is for the pilot to turn back to the safety of the airfield without having the altitude to do it, stalling and spinning into the ground. Now this is what's known as the impossible turn. Now it's drilled into us during training that if the engine does fail and we're less than 1,000 feet above the ground, we land straight ahead or within a 30-degree arc, no more. And yet pilots still do it. The urge to turn back must be overwhelming. So those are the top three, which cover the majority of aviation accidents. So, is general aviation dangerous? Well, it certainly can be, but like motorcycles, aircraft generally don't crash themselves. It's as safe as we make it. So what do I do to mitigate the risks? Firstly, research. I read books on the topic, articles on the internet, watch videos on YouTube. I try and absorb as much information as I can so I can learn from other people's mistakes and not replicate them. I do this with motorcycling and now with aviation. I continually train to improve my skills. Now, whilst I consider myself an expert motorcycle rider, I still listen to other experienced riders for hints and tips on how to improve further. There are always things to learn. I'm never arrogant enough to assume I know everything when I simply don't. Now, another method that I use is to run through emergency scenarios in my mind. I play them out and rehearse what I would do in that situation. Do it repeatedly, and then if it does happen, you've already practiced the appropriate actions and it comes as no surprise and you can react quickly and efficiently. Now, a good example of this was when I just picked up my bike from a local mechanic who performed a service on it. I was riding home and the throttle jammed open at 60 miles per hour just as I was approaching a sharp right-hander. Now, I didn't panic. I wasn't even flustered. I simply flicked the engine kill switch. I successfully negotiated the corner. I pulled over and stopped. So why was I so calm? Because this was one of those scenarios I played out in my mind many, many times. I pictured it so vividly that when it did happen, it didn't faze me at all. Now, with aviation, it's even easier to practice. In X-Plane 11 Flight Sim, I can get the computer to randomly simulate emergencies. It's amazing, and I can thoroughly recommend it. So, that's it. Yes, the statistics don't make for pleasant reading, but remember, that most accidents are pilot error. That means you, the pilot, are very much in control of your own fate. So get trained, get more training, and keep getting training. Never stop learning. And there's no reason at all why you can't have many, many years of safe, happy, incredible flying adventures. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked the video, and if you did, please hit the like button. Even better, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. See you next time.